Good evening. You're watching World News Tonight on TVP World. I'm Aaron Darman. Donald Trump is warning tonight that the, quote, big wave is yet to come in his war on Iran, on the same day that the conflict spilled over into Lebanon and a suspected Iranian drone hit a British airbase runway in Cyprus. More in just a moment, but first, here's what's also making news. Volodymyr Zelensky says another round of trilateral peace talks are still on track. France readies itself to station nuclear arms in allied countries, including Poland. And hundreds of thousands of people remain stranded in the Middle East. And we begin tonight in Iran as President Donald Trump says he expects his attack of the Middle Eastern country to last 4 to 5 weeks if necessary. This as the Pentagon insists the conflict will not turn into another endless war like Iraq, and questions emerge over who will succeed the regime's supreme leader. Pavel Czaskovsky explains.
Smoke rises over Tehran. Monday marks the third day of US and Israeli strikes on Iran. The operation that started on Saturday
was highly classified so that at each hour the enemy would see one thing: speed, surprise, and violence.
And more waves of attacks have already been announced.
We projected 4 to 5 weeks, but we have capability to go far longer than that.
This operation has already claimed the lives of over 500,000 Iranians, according to the Iranian Red Crescent. And although US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says that
this is not Iraq, this is not endless,
all the US's objectives have not yet been achieved.
The mission of Operation Epic Fury is laser-focused. Destroy Iranian offensive missiles, destroy Iranian missile production, destroy their navy and other security infrastructure, and they will never have nuclear weapons.
But despite Washington's claims that Epic Fury is not about regime change in Iran, it says close to 50 of Iran's top brass have already been killed in the process, including the country's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei. Iran is now governed by a council consisting of the country's president, head of the judiciary, and a senior cleric. They are to run the state until a new supreme leader is appointed. Khamenei's grandson, Hassan, considered a moderate reformist within the Islamic Republic of Iran, is said to be a likely contender to lead the regime, one that's believed to have killed up to 30,000 anti-government protesters earlier this year by some estimates. Iran has retaliated to the bombings hitting numerous targets in the region: Israel, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Iraq, Bahrain, Oman and Kuwait all report strikes. These satellite images show damaged structures in Ali al-Salem military airbase, which hosts US military forces. And among the confusion, Kuwaiti air defenses mistakenly shot down 3 US F-15 fighter jets. All members of the crew ejected from their planes and were safely recovered. 2 Iranian drones attacked a British military base in Cyprus, used in part by the US Air Force, the first instance of the conflict directly affecting a European Union country.
They told us to evacuate the house, to leave for Limassol.
And the conflict has spilled into Lebanon as well. Hezbollah, the Iran-backed militant group with bases in Lebanon, has struck Israel in response to the killing of Ali Khamenei. Israel fired back and is amassing forces on the border with the country. Residents of the southern parts of Lebanon are fleeing the area, fearing a major escalation. But as the attacks engulf the region, the number of escape routes is only bound to diminish. Pavel Czaskovsky, TVP World.
And as residents flee Lebanon, hundreds of thousands of travellers have been left stranded across the Middle East, with major airports and the likes of Dubai and Doha forced to suspend all operations. Germany and the Czech Republic are now deploying repatriation flights to bring citizens back home, and Warsaw is urging Poles stuck in the region to wait for de-escalation. Anastasia Yanchenko reports.
The latest escalation between the United States, Israel and Iran has brought the region's air traffic to a halt. Major air hubs in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Kuwait and Doha suspended operations. Airspace closures left hundreds of thousands of passengers stranded across the Middle East. Among them, Michal Broniatowski, TVP World's director.
In the morning, I checked whether there were any plans to open the airport in Dubai, and there was an information that they would do it by 3 o'clock today. It is already 3 o'clock. I opened the portal of the airport, and now they are saying as soon as we can have more information.
Some European countries, including Germany, which claims an estimate of 30,000 citizens stranded in the Middle East, and the Czech Republic, with nearly 7,000, are organizing evacuation flights from Muscat in Oman and Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, where airspace is restricted but not fully closed. 10,000 Polish citizens are stranded in the United Arab Emirates alone, with the Polish Foreign Ministry spokesperson saying that for now the safest option is to wait for the escalation.
In places like Qatar or Dubai, it is much safer to stay in the place of shelter and not leave those places. We still have missiles, we still have drones flying over, they are being shot down, so it's much safer to stay where it is safe.
The airport closures have triggered a scramble among the wealthy to leave the Emirates by private jet. Reports say security firms are booking convoys to drive clients to Saudi Arabia for flights. Meanwhile, private jet prices have surged. The smallest aircraft now cost around 85,000 euros, nearly 3 times the usual rate. But the disruption have also complicated returns from other destinations like Indonesia and Thailand, as UAE airports have become key global transit points, especially between Europe and Asia. Yaroslav, who was due to fly back from his holiday in Thailand on Monday, remains stranded.
We live in a suspense. If somebody hasn't reacted very fast on the moment, then most likely they will have to spend more time here in Asia waiting for resolution, either from airlines or they have to do it on their own.
A large part of those stranded are Russian. About 20,000 Russian tourists are currently stuck in the UAE.
Me.
But online influencers have already gone into overdrive, posting videos of interrupted vacations and empty supermarket shelves. Marika, a Polish citizen living in Dubai, says many of the viral videos are misleading. She believes some influencers are exaggerating the situation to spread and sow fear and gain more subscribers.
If it's so dangerous, why are you in the beach club recording the sky, right? Like, if you're so scared, you should be hiding somewhere, right? So it just really proves the point that it's not that scary here.
It is unclear how long flight services will remain disrupted. The situation is changing quickly, and airlines are urging passengers to check their flight status online before heading to the airport. Anastasia Yanchenko, TVP World.
We are arming ourselves together with our friends so that our enemies do not dare attack us. That's the message from Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk as he reveals Warsaw is negotiating with Paris and other close European allies about an advanced nuclear deterrence program. As defence correspondent Susanna Jurek reports, France is even opening the door to temporarily deploying its atomic-armed planes.
A new nuclear forward deterrent has been unveiled by the French President Emmanuel Macron on Monday. Now, this move comes in increasingly challenging geopolitical times, which it serves to address. Now, when it comes to what this will mean, the French President has primarily underlined that this will serve as a significant build-up of French nuclear capabilities.
I have ordered an increase in the number of nuclear warheads in our arsenal to put an end to any speculation. We will no longer communicate the figures of our nuclear arsenal, unlike what might have been the case in the past.
France and the United Kingdom are currently the only European NATO allies which possess nuclear capabilities. At the same time, the backbone of nuclear deterrence in the NATO alliance is the sole responsibility of the US. Now, this move comes after months of speculations over the US's commitment to the European NATO allies and the Europeans themselves striving for greater sovereignty as well as independence from the US's defense. Now, this will also serve as a realization of some of these talks and some of these aspirations that the Europeans have underlined in recent months, including Poland, which, when signing the Nancy Treaty with Paris last year, has underlined that its key priority lies in the development of its nuclear arsenal, together with France potentially serving as a nuclear umbrella, something that Warsaw is now poised to obtain.
Poland is in talks with France and a group of closest European allies on the program of advanced nuclear deterrence. We are arming up together with our friends so that our enemies will never dare to attack us.
Now, apart from Poland, a number of European NATO allies are said to be involved in a potential nuclear sharing under the French nuclear umbrella. This includes the Netherlands, Denmark, Belgium, as well as Germany. However, the main responsibility and the sole decision-making for potentially using nuclear warheads for strikes will lie with the French president. Now, as has been underlined by a number of experts, including Thomas Nagy of Globsec, this represents the most significant shift in policy that Europe has seen in the better half of the last century.
That this is probably the most consequential speech that Emmanuel Macron delivered on nuclear deterrence since he came to power. It certainly means that there's a departure from the policy that was around for about 30 years. So in a post-Cold War period, we had sort of a stagnation of nuclear warheads, and that era seems to be coming to an end, and France is going to essentially participate in the bolstering of the posture.
Finally, when it comes to how this new policy strategy will fit into NATO's existing strategies, including the nuclear planning group, it is expected that this latest policy shift will serve as a complementary use of capabilities and nuclear capabilities for the NATO alliance. From Brussels for TVP World, Zuzanna Jurek.
America's strikes on Iran are also sending a jolt through the global markets. Oil prices have already surged by almost 10%, and European stocks swung sharply as investors assess the threats of a wider war and any impact on critical energy routes. Our business editor Jakub Kapiszewski has more.
The scenario feared by every oil trader is unfolding in front of our eyes. An attack on Iran, a country with the power to block the Strait of Hormuz, a critical passage through which 1/5 of the global oil supply passes every day. Given the circumstances, it should come as no surprise that the price of the commodity powering the global economy shot up by almost 10% on Monday morning, even though the market has already priced in some of the risk involved in the confrontation with Iran due to the build-up of US forces in the region in the weeks leading up to the attack.
The movements today are at least moderate for the time being. However, it is to be feared and very likely that the oil price will rise significantly.
More dire news came from the gas market, where Dutch front month futures, considered Europe's gas benchmark, traded 35% higher at roughly €43 per megawatt hour by 5 p.m. European stock exchanges dipped on Monday, some including Germany's DAX and France's CAC 40 by more than 2%.
The DAX got off to a weak and nervous start, and the reason for this is obvious, of course. It's the conflict in the Middle East, Iran, and the fear of how it could escalate further.
Disruptions in the Middle East may also have an impact on Central Europe and Poland. The country gets more than half of its oil supply from Saudi Arabia. But Poland's sole petroleum company Orlen said on Sunday there's no immediate risk to the country's oil supply.
Saudi oil is sent to Poland from Yanbu, a big oil terminal on the Red Sea coast, so it bypasses the Persian Gulf completely. And this terminal can process 7 million barrels a day, so it's quite big.
And the market appreciates that, with the company's shares rising by more than 5% today. Another issue is gas supply, as Poland gets some of it from Qatar in the form of LNG or super-chilled gas. But even here, the exposure is limited. Out of 81 shipments the country received in 2025, only 17 were from Qatar, so experts remain calm.
The winter season is drawing to a close, so demand for natural gas is lower. What's more, Poland has enough of the fuel left in storage to cover 30 days of demand, so there shouldn't be any problems.
But even Paszkowski says longer disruptions in the Middle East can have unpredictable consequences.
The Middle East is central to the European energy
Over in Brussels, European leaders are grappling with Donald Trump's move on Iran, largely treading carefully over the initial attack, but firmly condemning the regime's retaliation. In fact, the conflict landed on the EU's doorstep on Monday, with a suspected Iranian drone hitting the runway of a British Air Force base in Cyprus. Laura Hazanov reports.
The European Union is waking up to a post-Khomeini world with tensions rising fast and the prospect of a wider regional conflict edging closer to home. Most European leaders have reacted cautiously to the joint US-Israeli operation that killed Iran's supreme leader Ali Khamenei, while fully condemning Tehran's retaliatory drone and missile strikes across the region. But the war is already drawing Europe closer. Greece has said it is sending military frigates along with F-16 fighter jets to Cyprus in response to a supposed drone strike on a British RAF base. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has convened an emergency security college meeting.
And my third point is the stability of the region is of the utmost importance. The only lasting solution is a diplomatic one. And this means a credible transition for Iran, the definite hold to both the nuclear and ballistic programs, and an end to destabilizing activities in the region.
But Spain has taken a different approach. Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez has been the only EU leader to fully condemn the joint operation, calling it unilateral and warning that it risks another drawn-out Middle Eastern conflict.
One must oppose a war launched without authorization from the United States Congress, from the United Nations Security Council, and as I have said before, one that violates international law, and recognize that there is always room for a negotiated solution, instead of being dragged into a devastating display of weapons as the only possible outcome.
France, Germany and the UK say that they were not involved in the strikes. However, they have warned that they are ready for decisive defensive action if Iran continues its attacks. Friedrich Merz, the Chancellor of Germany, is set to meet with US President Donald Trump in Washington on Tuesday. From Brussels for TVP World, Laura Hazanov.
With many in Europe measuring their responses, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is openly backing the strikes, saying the Tehran regime must be held accountable. At the same time, the Kremlin's air assaults, often using Iranian drone technology, refuse to let up, as Kyiv fears attention could drift away from Russia's 4-year-long full-scale invasion. Piotr Kuchma has more.
As bombs fall in the Middle East, Kiev ponders where that leaves the war in Ukraine. And these are the consequences of Russia's latest bombardments. A Russian-made Shahed drone, the same type Iran is using against Israel, struck a residential area in the city of Sumy. According to local authorities, an 87-year-old woman was wounded.
They helped me out of the house. I had inhaled smoke. The ambulance arrived and measured my blood pressure. It had risen to 200. They gave me an injection, but I refused to go to the hospital.
President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russia has launched more than 57,000 Shahed drones against Ukraine since 2022. With Iran not only supplying them, but also sharing production-related technology. Against that backdrop, Kiev's pro-American stance on Iran is clear. Zelensky says the regime in Tehran must be held accountable, and that Washington's decision was the right one.
The regime itself has predetermined the way it is treated. It's important that there is a clear stance when it comes to supporting people and life. It's important that American resolve, the resolve of everyone the world over, brings results.
And according to experts, Kiev's support of Washington was to be expected.
Both in terms of Iran's alignment with Russia, it's not surprising. In terms of the attacks that Ukraine has suffered from weapons manufactured or designed by Iran, it's not surprising. And finally, politically, I think President Zelensky has every reason to be on the same page with President Trump when it comes to this issue.
But rising tensions in the Middle East are creating another challenge for Kiev. A new round of peace talks between Ukraine, Russia and the United States were expected this week in Abu Dhabi, the capital of the United Arab Emirates. That same city saw debris from an intercepted Iranian drone damage part of the Etihad Towers complex. With security concerns mounting, it remains unclear where and when the next round of peace negotiations regarding the war in Ukraine will occur.
If holding the meeting in Abu Dhabi becomes difficult because of missile and drone attacks, then I believe we still have Turkey and Switzerland, places that have already worked and enabled everyone to meet. We will definitely support any of these three locations. We are waiting for a response from our partners.
There are also concerns about military supplies. Zelensky has warned that the US conflict with Iran could deplete stocks of air defense missiles, including Patriot interceptors, that are crucial for protecting Ukraine from Russian rockets.
So that war really would take much longer than some of the Trump's administration expert predicts. So in another month or 2 months, both Russia and both Ukraine would have to start to look for a new supply route or new weapon, basically.
And this is the worst-case scenario for residents of Ukrainian cities like Sumy. Hence, Ukraine's clear support for America's operation in Iran should not come as a surprise.
I would say in this situation, I'm not sure that President Zelensky had much of a choice. What he needs more than the support of the Global South is really the support of the US president.
Piotr Kuchma, TVP World.
And joining me now in the studio is former Prime Minister of Poland, Jan Krzysztof Bilecki. Good evening to you, sir.
Very good evening to you.
Always a pleasure to have you with us. As we go to where Donald Trump is saying, quote, the big wave is still to come when we're talking about his conflict in Iran. To be clear, is the Middle East now at war?
Well, I hope it's a temporary conflict which also create an opportunity to stop the state of terror, which was famous for that over the last 40 years, which made a lot of harm and threats all over the region, also through the proxies like Hezbollah or Hamas. So I think it's maybe a judgment time for them, for the regime, hopefully, and we will see.
And you would say, as it stands, the Middle East appears to be at war?
Well, I'm saying that hopefully the whole Middle East is not at war, but Iran, yes, they face a serious problem, and we'll see how if it's possible, the public will respond to the changing situation, because to see Iranians happy in Los Angeles is one side of the story. The second is how the people inside Iran will respond to. And if there is something like an opposition, like it was in our case many years ago.
We've heard President Trump talk about dominating the Western Hemisphere. Of course, Iran is not in the Western Hemisphere, so why is he choosing to get involved here, to send American soldiers to die in a conflict that seems to be at odds with what he says are his strategic interests?
Yes, but I'm not 100% sure that what is the strategy of the country these days is fully covered by the published strategy. Because
perhaps Donald Trump's whim.
Yeah, or maybe the Americans at large, the people behind I don't know, office of the security advisor, the Pentagon, I can't believe that they go and openly and loudly will announce what are the objectives when. You may observe that if you go from Venezuela through Mexico to Iran and then maybe somewhere else, then the sources of supply for some other buyers, big buyers like China, are also under some threat. So that might be also a part of indirect negotiations with China. But
I want to. China is an interesting one because, of course, its relationship also with Russia. Iran, of course, has a major relationship, or has had a major relationship and partnership with Russia, particularly when it comes to the war in Ukraine. President Volodymyr Zelensky is, in a way, welcoming these strikes. He has said, look, the Tehran regime needs to be held accountable. But is this all good news for Kyiv, or could this distract from the peace process?
Well, but look at the situation a few months ago. It was a big demonstration and big celebration in Moscow, in Kremlin, when Vladimir Putin received a visit of Iranian, I think, president, and they signed a treaty about cooperation, friendship, and security guarantees. And then a few months later, you see that the Russian security guarantees are not that binding, because the official response from Russia was stop fighting. So that is.
So is this good or bad news for
me?
Ukraine?
Some kind of dilution of this fantastic power, particularly of kinetic forces of Russia, and also in Venezuela and in Iran. There's plenty of military equipment which is bought and brought from Russia. So in that game, Russian equipment against the US equipment, I think Russians are losing very badly.
Speaking of the region here in Central and Eastern Europe, and particularly Poland, we've heard Prime Minister Donald Tusk say that talks are underway with France and other European allies on an advanced nuclear deterrent. Is it time for Poland to have nukes here on Polish soil?
It has been raised already by the previous former president of Poland, Andrzej Duda.
And J.D. Vance said, I can't imagine.
Vance said, yes, we are not engaging in that kind of solutions, which I understood that is the significant change of the American policy towards Russia and kind of appeasement, number 2 or number 5 of Putin. So if also the government, the incumbent government, shares that opinion, deterrence is very important. So, and the French are happy at least to discuss about kind of a cooperation. So we should go for that.
So in a way, France is stepping in where the US, as you rightly mentioned last year, then President Andrzej Duda saying, yep, let's station nuclear weapons here. J.D. Vance said, he'd be shocked if Trump did that. So France is stepping into the breach now, isn't it?
Yeah, well, France is, always like to be recognized as a big power, the biggest in Europe, probably by nuclear forces. They are definitely the biggest. Sorry for the British, but this is, I think, the present situation. So if they have some intention in that direction, then I understand the Polish government is saying, okay, let's talk.
So you agree that given the threats that we see from Russia, not just in Ukraine, but beyond Ukraine, that it would be time for Poland to have nukes here on Polish soil?
Well, what I'm saying, and particularly what I understand Prime Minister Tusk has been saying for some time, Poland has to be ready to defend herself with all necessary ways and means, you know, and to be a really serious power, because if you are strong enough yourself, not only you don't have to that much depend on the others, but it's the best deterrence. Because, well, it's much better if I'm the best, I don't know, karate fighter myself and champion of the world, or I'm trying to frighten you by saying, okay, listen, tomorrow I will come with a friend of mine who is a champion in karate, but myself I'm a little bit sick and poor guy, but I have a good friend who is perfect fighter. So who you think would be better seen by the opponent? Myself, ready for the fight, or myself, poor, coming with a big friend, ready for the fight?
So you're saying nuclear option in Poland makes sense?
So we are saying, I think, and this is the Prime Minister who said that, and I believe the incumbent president as well, that deterrence for Poland and ability to defend by ourselves is the most important, it is critical. That's why we increase the spendings, but also we, to some extent, are adjusting the economic policy of the country towards defense sector-driven economy, not like it was years ago that was very much export-driven. It's also export-driven, but it's also by defense sector, which brings strengthening of the military, but at the same time, it's very important for innovation and technology boost for the country.
Jan Krzysztof Pilecki, former Prime Minister of Poland, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
And that's all for World News Tonight. Do stay with us here on TVP World for more. I'm Aaron Darman. Good night.